Hey guys, welcome to another video from BlenderBrit. Not a tutorial today, instead I come bearing gifts. I released the materials tutorial just the other day, had some good feedback from it, so thanks for that. However, just after that I was watching some more tutorials from CynicatPro regarding PBR shaders and decided to put a few together myself, which I'm going to share. You can download them from the website. I'll include a link underneath in the video. And what I'm basically going to do in this is just give you a quick overview of usage and then piece together one material, just so you've got an example of how they work. So let's get started. First of all, we're going to go to our append thing here. Append thing? What are you talking about? And somewhere on your hard drive, after you've downloaded it, you'll have this called pack_PBR shaders. Click on that, click on node tree, and you've got the different shaders here. I'm going to import them all, but on your projects, just obviously bring in the ones you need. No need to bring in the Fresnel node group because it's integrated into all of the other ones anyway, so that'll be brought in automatically. So let's bring those in. Now the scene I've got here is identical to the one I used in my previous tutorial, so I won't go through the settings and whatnot again. What I will do though is bring in some of these groups and take a look at what they do. Now the first one, probably the one that you'll end up using the most, is the Diffuse/Glossy. I don't know if that's a good name for it, but it's the one I decided to go with. And what I've tried to do with this one is allow you to stick to the workflow that you're probably quite used to, which is always good. So I'll plug that into my material output now, and let's have a look at what some of these things do. So first of all, you've got your diffuse color, which you can change about like so. You've got your roughness, which will affect the roughness and also the glossiness of the shader. So yes, one thing to get used to is the glossiness is going to be affected by the roughness value more than anything else. I have put in a reflection override though, which will give you a control very similar to a mix node. If you've watched BlenderGuru's new tutorial this week, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about because that's where I borrowed the idea from. And it basically allows you to override the roughness and the Fresnel and just add in almost like a specularity, like you would in any normal diffuse and glossy mix. And then you've got the index of refraction, which basically it controls the Fresnel group. Just to take a quick look inside the group, I'm going to press tab, and what we've got here again is very similar to the setup that Andrew Price was using. All I've done differently really is I've not given you the override controls that he put in his. The main reason being I prefer to do that outside of the node using color ramps. Feel free to go in and add in those nodes if you wish though. What is a little different is the Fresnel node is a bit more complex, so you might want to leave that alone. It's directly taken from CynicatPro's Fresnel setup, and it works really well as is, so no need to touch that. All of the shaders have one extra thing though that I've put in, and that is something called Glossy Mix. Well, on most of them it's Glossy Mix, it's Rim Mix on one of the others. And what that allows you to do, if you've got Node Wrangler added, if you hit Control, Shift and then left click, it will give you a preview of the mix that's going to be used to bring in the glossy. Now because we've not added any maps to this at the moment, it's just the Fresnel, and it's really good for quickly seeing the changes you're making to the amount of gloss that's going to be added to the material. I find it really useful. I hope you do too. Just remember to switch it back over to shader when you come to render. If you don't use Node Wrangler, you can connect this up to an emission shader and then drop it in the material output, and that'll do exactly the same thing. Okay, so that's the Diffuse Glossy one. Nothing particularly special there. Like I say, it's pretty much identical to the one you may have seen in Andrew Price's tutorial. However, the fun does not stop there. Next, I'm going to bring in this metallic shader that I've made. Again, heavily based off CynicatPro's setup, and that basically is for doing metals. There is a few different controls. You've got the color, obviously, which will affect the primary color. You don't tend to muck around with that too much though, so I'm going to leave that where it was, like so. You have this though, called the rim color, and that allows you to get some rim lighting on your metals. I'm going to go to quite an extreme value here to show you what I mean. So let's turn the rim lighting to 0.7, and you'll see at the sort of further off angles that you're getting some nice rim shading there. You typically go really subtle with this though, maybe something like 0.3 and a lighter sort of colour. You can barely notice it, but it does make a nice effect when you need that sort of materials. You may use it if you're creating a gold material. For example, change this to kind of a yellowy sort of colour, make this a bit more of a deep orange, maybe turn up the layer weight a bit more, no, but a bit more, and so on and so on. Also, car paint. You probably want to use a setup similar to this for doing car paint. Like the previous shader, it has a rim mix, so you can see exactly what's going on with your shader. I'll show you how useful this is when we come to build a material at the end of this video, but it is a lifesaver, it really is. So that's metallic out the way. Oh, sorry, one more thing. You've obviously got the roughness, which is self-explanatory. Really, really shiny, not shiny at all. With the roughness all the way up at 1, it's a diffuse material, so you don't want to put it that high. It'll probably be quite low numbers like this for the majority of metals, and in most cases you'll probably want it powered by a map. Okie dokie, so boom. Oh, and for all of these you do have a normal input, but again, I'll demonstrate that when we build a material at the end. So next one we've got is glass, like so. Not particularly exciting. Few different controls on here. You've got the roughness value. Be very subtle with this, because the second you go too high, your glass is going to look really, really odd. You ideally want to put a map in here, or maybe a really, really small number if you're making a simple glass object that you don't want to be completely opaque. Reflection is the same as it was on the diffuse. It's for overriding the specular value. The shadow fix is, I'll tab into the node for this one. You've probably seen the setup before, but it's a way of making sure the shadow rays use a transparent shader rather than the glass setup. This is so, let's say we're using this to put windows in a building. If you don't use the shadow fix, no light is going to get into your room. This allows the light to pass through the glass properly and illuminate a room, and there's various other usages. Most glass materials you'll make, you'll want some level of this. It really depends on what you're doing. But as you can see, right up at max, you get a much brighter sort of glass, but it'll generate no shadows, or practically no shadows. If you turn it all the way down, it will generate a shadow, but you don't get the light passing through the glass, so you get a very sort of dark image. And the index of refraction is self-explanatory. That's for the glass and the Fresnel that is used within it. Okie dokie, so that's that one done. One more to go. I shall wait a moment though while the loud plane passes overhead. Always fun. And the last one we've got is a fabric material. So what I'll quickly do is put a diffuse there, and then I'll bring up the fabric like so. Oop. Oh, I did have it selected. Rocking it, Bill. Okay, so I'll go to rendered mode again and create a new material. This will be our cloth, and then I'll bring in the fabric PBR. Drop that in there, and let's have a look at what this does. So colour, I'm sure you can guess what that does. Changes the colour of the cloth. The roughness, again, self-explanatory. Reflection is identical to the other ones, as is the index reflection and the normal. The different ones on the fabric are these chaps down the bottom. If I turn up this mix and start bringing the velvet shader in, you'll see how it darkens. Let me just change that back to white, it's easier to see. Yes, that's not really white, is it, Bill? There we go. So as you can see, as you increase the mix value, you start bringing in this darker sort of effect on the facing angles, and you can increase that by lowering the sigma. Basically, it's just controlling the velvet shader that's inside, but you can play around with those values as needed. And transparency, guess what that does? It makes it transparent. As I demonstrated in my previous video, I used a cloth texture, and I used the little holes, the little microscopic holes in the cloth to power the transparency, and that's where you dump that in. So that is the 4 different shaders. Now what I'm going to do is use a couple of them to make a material so you can see them used in a real sort of situation. So we don't need the fabric one, we don't need that diffuse, we don't need the glass, but we're going to keep the metallic and the diffuse and glossy. And what we're basically going to do is make the gunmetal material that I made in the previous tutorial. However, we're going to do it this time using these shaders, and you'll see the workflow is quite a bit nicer. So let's drop that into there, and we'll start off by bringing in a image texture. I'm going to hit open. Go to my textures, and they should all still be there like they were before. Fantastic. Okay. I've still not got around to UV unwrapping this ball because I'm a lazy person sometimes, apparently. So let's turn that to box mode and take a look at what that's doing. Lovely. Need to change that to object. And yep, works fine. Maybe just turn this blend up a little bit, and that's going to be our diffuse color map. What I am going to do though is also add in a hue and saturation node, and this will allow us to, no, I don't want that. Grr, stupid Bill. I want a, oh, I've forgotten, brightness and contrast. There we go. So with this selected, let's turn this value down a little bit, maybe 0.07 or minus 0.07. It's probably a bit too dark. Let's try minus 0.05. Drop that into the color, connect up this shader, and there we go. We've got our basic color in there. Next thing we're going to do is make the maps that we're going to use for the other inputs. But first of all, I'm going to put these in a frame so we can see what we're doing. So that's going to be our diffuse color sort of setup. And the next part is our roughness and other maps. So let's add in another image texture. I'll duplicate that because I know we're going to need 2. Press Control T. Oh dear. Press Control T on both. Fantastic. Give us a bit of room. Okay. So I need the fine scratches, like so, and I need, I don't know, I've forgotten, which is great, isn't it? Maybe it was just the fine scratches. I think it was also a noise texture. I can't remember. Yeah, it's not going to matter that much anyway. So this material is going to be our scratches, this texture, sorry. Sort these numbers out again. Sorry if I'm rushing through this and not really explaining it, but it's literally identical to what we covered in the previous tutorial, so just go watch that. It'll make a lot more sense, hopefully. And now I'm going to add in 2 color amps. One is going to be to power our roughness, and the other one is going to be to power our reflection. And I've just remembered the other texture we need. Stupid boy. We need some grime. There we go. There we go. So we've got the scratches there, which we don't actually need. It was just the grime we need. Oh my god, Bill, you're being an idiot. I would go back and re-edit this, but hey, I'm giving away something free. I can't be bothered. Okay, so we've got some grime. I'm going to scale that down just a little bit to something like that, and that will give us a nice starting point for our roughness. Now, when you're using the roughness input, the biggest thing to remember is it's kind of opposite to what you're used to. Before, when you're making a glossy map, black would be for no gloss whatsoever, and white would be for maximum gloss. However, with roughness, black means there's no roughness at all, and white means maximum roughness. But that's the opposite in terms of glossy. So when you've got something that's not rough at all, it's 100% shiny, and when something's really rough, it's not shiny in the slightest. So we need to basically reverse the way we make our map. So let's dump in a math node. I don't think so. A color ramp node, and let's have a look. So what we need to create here is basically the opposite of what we're seeing here. Now you could just dump in an invert and give yourself a bit of a head start. In fact, how does that look? Awful. Yeah, I don't like that, so let's forget that. So we're going to use the color ramp to swap these values over. So the first thing we'll do is click this little flip, and then we can start bringing down this black value, and that will start to bring in the shinier areas, like so. And you normally have to bring this right down, but that should work pretty well. We don't want anywhere to be completely rough though, so let's turn this chap down a little, maybe to about there. Yeah, it shouldn't look too bad. And there you go, that's going to be our roughness map. So we'll drop that in there. Now before we preview the shader, let's take a look at what this glossy mix does, because this is where it starts to get a little more interesting. So boom. Now I brought in the glossy mix, and as you can see, the map that we've just dumped in is being affected by the Fresnel without you having to do anything. You just dump in the roughness value, and if you change the Fresnel value, it will affect the map that you've just dropped in. So that's a hell of a time saver and a hell of a lot less node work. So I quite like this method. Now, as I mentioned, we've got this reflection override. Now, technically speaking, if you're sticking to completely physically based, you don't really get this type of effect. This is to allow you to break the rules and get somewhere shiny that you want shiny, regardless of if it physically should be or not. That's how most of us like to work. I would assume it's certainly how I like to work, and that's what this is for. Like I said, for a better explanation, visit BlenderGuru.com and check out his latest tutorial, because it's the exact same thing that's sitting in this node group. So with the roughness now in, let's have a look how the shader looks. Nice, just a little bit of glossiness to it and shininess, but it's mostly kind of rough, nasty sort of material, which is perfect for what we're using. So what we're going to do though, because it is grime, we are going to we want the grime to catch a bit of that light and show up a little bit more, and we could do that by adjusting the roughness ramp if we wanted to do it properly, but since I want to show you how to use the reflection map, we're going to use the cheating method and just overlay that shininess on top. So let's get another color ramp. And this one is going to work in the method that we're used to, where black is not shiny at all and white is shiny. So we'll drop that straight into the reflection node there. And now when I'll show you the glossy mix, you'll see the difference. If I bring this up, that's our kind of original roughness map, or at least the amount of glossy being used via the roughness map. And then we can bring in our cheating version here, like so. And it's probably a bit on the bright side, so let's lower this white value. There you go. And now when we take a look at the material, once again a plane going overhead. I really need to move, don't I? As you can, no, I'll just wait until it passes. I do apologise. as I was saying. So now you're getting a little bit more of that shine on the front there, and with a combination of these two, it just gives you so much control. And that's about it. We are, however, going to also add in a normal map, and that's where I need those scratches. So first of all, I'm going to dump these in a frame. Since we're only making the one material today, I may as well make it a neat one. Oh dear. Oh dear, it's all gone wrong. There we go. So we've got our colour, our roughness and reflection maps, and now we'll add in another image texture. Open that chap up. Get our fine scratches. Hit Control T. And let's preview that image. So like before, that needs to be a box. That also needs to go to Object. Like so. Fantastic. And let's just blend that a little bit. And this is going to be our bump map. So I don't think we need to bother with a color ramp in this instance. We'll just go straight to the bump. Drop it in the height value. We'll need to invert it because at the moment the white is going to be making the scratches bump out of the material, and we want them to dig in. So we'll invert the bump map, and then we can drop that normal straight into the normal value there. Very important to note, on all of these shaders you need either a bump map or a combination of bump maps or a normal map. You can't just dump a bump texture or a normal map into that node. You do need this first, so do bear that in mind. Now I'm going to show you one of the greatest things about this setup, and that is the fact the bump will affect the reflective materials as well as everything else, including the Fresnel, which is not how I had it set up in the previous video, and I really regret that now, that my knowledge has expanded a bit, not including that. So if I go to the Glossy mix and play around with these values, let's try a 0.4 and a 0.4. It's kind of hard to see. There you go. So these scratches, you'll see, are coming through in the glossiness, which is exactly the way it should work, and it's so effortless. You just drop it in and boom, you're good to go. So I think that's going to work really well. Let's have a look at the shader itself. Still think those scratches could be showing up a little better, but we'll be using this for something else in a moment anyway. So I don't think it's going to be an issue. Once we bring in the next shader, that should work pretty well. So like we did in the last one, we are now going to make a chrome material. So I'll just drop that in there for now, and we'll get rid of the color because we don't want color. Go away, go away. And we don't need rim lighting for this, so I'm just going to drop that down to 0, which also means we don't need the layer weight. I'm going to make it a little bit rough though. There we go. And now we're going to mix these two node groups together via a color ramp built off the bump node and that pointiness value that I showed you last time. So let's put in a mix shader, connect those together. There we go. So now we can mix between our two completely different shaders, and now we'll make a color ramp. And let's first grab the image texture. We want to try and brighten this up a bit because we really are going to need that effect to come through. Excellent. And now we need to make another color ramp for our pointiness node, which is geometry. There we go. And we'll just take in the pointiness factor. If you like, you can press Control H and hide that node so it's just the pointiness. Doesn't really make much of a difference though. And then bam, with any luck, we'll be able to find our edges, and that's the whole point of this node group is to detect the edges so you can make use of them. Ooh. As I mentioned last time, this does take a bit of TLC to get the right effect, but once you do, there we go. So now our edges are clearly being detected, and we'll just kind of mix these together via a math node, and this will be our map for mixing the sort of dirty metal with the shiny metal. So we'll drop that in there. Whoop, wake up. And bam, already looking quite nice. However, I do want to slightly adjust that. Doesn't seem quite bright enough. So what I might do is drop in another math node and just multiply this figure maybe by 4. That should make it stand out a bit more. Ooh, it's all going a bit messy again. Yeah, doesn't really make much of a difference actually, did it? Oh well. Oh, I definitely don't want to do that. Close enough. With a little bit of fiddling around, you'll certainly be able to sort that out. And then just to neaten things up, let's dump in this stuff into there. So this controls our bump and our chrome mixes and whatnot. And the only other thing I will do is take the bump map that we've already created and also drop that into the metallic shader. Nice. Yeah, that works. That works nicely. I like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you find these tools useful. I did have something to wrap up with. Yes, I just wanted to say thank you to there was a handful of people that donated via my website after my previous tutorial. Really made my day, so thank you for that. Donations are always welcome, but never required. I hope you enjoy these nodes, and I will talk to you next time. As always, thanks for watching guys. Don't forget to subscribe to keep up to date with tutorial releases, and if you like, add me on Twitter and Facebook where I'll post up details of upcoming tutorials as well as answer any Blender questions you may have. Look forward to talking to you. Bye for now.